Welcome to this next installment of Pocket Change from a little different location in Poland. So let's get to it. We're going to talk today about communication. So we've talked about crafting the implementation plan. We've talked about chunking. We've talked about SCARF. We've talked about all kinds of issues leading up to creating this big plan after mapping out the organization, mapping out the business, mapping out the people dynamics. And now we've got this plan and we're going to bring it out. And how are we going to communicate it? Well, that's what we're going to do in this video. So we only have to do a few things here. One is that you need to figure out about how much communication you need to be doing and then multiply it by 3. If there's one thing that I, as a manager, have probably undercooked the most, even when I thought I was really pushing hard on the issue, it would be on communication. This is critically important. Now, the problem is that you won't get any medals pinned to your chest here. This is a pretty thankless part of change, but getting up in front of people, making sure you're communicating, getting your team together and putting together a plan is going to be absolutely crucial, and thinking longer term and not just, the next couple of weeks, and then maybe we'll have an update at the Christmas party or something like this. No, it needs to be a comprehensive approach. So how much do you need? Then calculate about 3 times more than that, and you'll probably get there. The second little tip is don't use the communications department. And that is such a cruel thing to say. And there's so many nice communications people out there, and they're saying, hey, use us, come on. And what my experience is, sorry to you communications people, but what my experience has been is communications is set up to regulate, to put things in templates, to do checklists, to make sure we're all okay with the marketing. It's very often sort of outside. I know there's internal communications and external communications, but communications seems to be very often a bureaucracy of people who cannot help you actually communicate. They can't write your speeches. They can't make better slides for you. They can't organize what needs to really be done. Of course, there are exceptions to this, but in general, if you go to your communications department and say, help me with the actual content of what needs to go out, you will be disappointed. So don't use them for these kinds of things, for the kinds of things where you as a manager going through a large change actually need to get out and have a lot of face-to-face. It should be your stuff, you build it, and you should go out and present it. Now, just a couple more points here. If we go back to our SCARF model and we go to C for certainty, predictability, that's one of the main things you want to be giving to people. So this is what we're starting, The big bang is the actual announcement, but we're going to do the steps in chunking. We're going to do this chunk now, and then later we're going to come with the next chunk. Okay, we're not going to do everything at once, and we're not just going to do a little breadcrumb trail. We're going to do it in chunks. But the communication is going to come out and say, this is what we're doing. And that's going to go bang into people's heads. And this can be disconcerting. This can be confusing to some people who have worked in a certain way maybe for a long time, or maybe they just got into this job and they just learned it and now you're going to change it. Oh dear. So you're going to have this uncertainty in the organization, and this is one of the things we need to tackle with the communications plan, tackling uncertainty and giving some sort of predictability where you can. And the last big point I'd like to make about this is using Carl Weick's sense making and sense breaking. We're going to break sense with the past. The way we did it before wasn't necessarily wrong and wasn't necessarily bad, but we're going to break sense with that, and we're going to make sense of the new strategy, the new vision, the new KPIs that we need to realize to make this change a success. So we can even use an example here of marriage. You, as a single person, you need to break sense with being a single person. And there are a lot of good things about it, and there are some things that are not so good about it. And we need to make sense of being married down to one person. And in the same way, we need to do that for the change. We're going to go to a different location, or we're going to have a different sales strategy. We need to break sense with what we did before, put that in a perspective. That was for another market, another time, another set of contributors. And now we're going to make sense. We're going to fit our new strategy, the change that's our new strategy, and we're going to fit that into our heads about how this makes sense. Let's look through these lenses now at the challenges we have before us. So when it comes to actually making the plan, keep it simple. Get your team together. Take a Microsoft Outlook calendar and print out, these are the days and weeks. Get that in front of you, get that in front of everyone, and then start to fill in, what are we going to do when? So this is an example of a communications plan I put together myself in an afternoon. And of course, this needed to be checked off with all of the management team, and we did do this, but it gave us kind of a little structure on which to focus. And if you look here carefully, you'll see that it goes over about 9 months, from September to May. This was in 2011. And what I put in there was simply one communication per week. Now, in the end, we did more than one communication a week, but we built it like this. We gave ourselves an idea, and then we put this all into a spreadsheet with a who does what by when. One of the things that we did put in this was we had the HR director going and presenting things about the change, not to his or her own group, but to other groups. So HR would go to operations. Operations would go to sales and present and say, this is what the change is looking like from our perspective. So we're doing sort of this cross-fertilization. But just coming in and saying in week one, what kind of communication are we going to do? Are we going to have a newsletter? Are we going to stand on a table in the cantina and say, hey, listen to me? Are we going to hire out a big center so that we can get 350 people in there and we can make a big announcement, some kind of launch for this change, whatever it's going to be. But make sure you put it down, and who does what by when. Each member of the management team should be doing something per week. And then you just say, this week we're doing this, and the next week, and you go out over 9 weeks, and you don't know what you're going to need, but you at least put something in the agenda. You put a placeholder there. So we don't forget about communication, because we will, if we get half a chance, we'll forget about doing these things. We have a placeholder in the agendas. Somebody needs to be the owner of this, of course. And in my example, we had an executive secretary who was on top of this thing and made sure that people knew a couple weeks before, hey, you've got to present to operations here, you've got to present to that client, to keep people up to date and make sure our communications was not the place that this change was going to fall down on. So that's it for now. Sorry to the communications people again. They're not going to be a whole lot of help. Sit down with your team and try to get it all on a one page so that you visualize it, and then put it into a spreadsheet with a who does what by when. Be careful that you don't do too little, so you figure out how much you need and multiply by about 3. Give people some certainty, give people some kind of predictability so they sort of kind of know what's coming down the road at them. And make sure you're building into this communication the breaking sense with the past and the making sense of the future. And if you do those things, you'll have a pretty competent communications plan to help roll out and stick into the minds this big change that you've got going on. So let's get into the practical tool now. Now, we've just come off of doing this crafting of the change plan, this big change implementation plan. And we've been talking here about the communications aspect of it, but I wanted to give you just a little tool that's kind of an insight into why we're doing the different aspects. Yeah. So what you see here is a matrix, and you have one part is the need and the vision, and then you have a skilled or guiding coalition, and then you need to map the people dynamics and the business dynamics, and you also need to craft an implementation plan. And what this matrix shows you is why you need each component. What will happen if you don't have these components? So if we just take a quick look at this, we need the need and vision. We can have everything else. We can have the coalition, we can map the people dynamics and the business dynamics, and we can make a plan. But if we don't have a need and a vision, well, then you're going to lead people into a lot of confusion. There's not going to be that dot on the horizon. We're not really clear. We know a change needs to take place, but where's the why? Where's the need? Where's the real vision? How do we know when we've gotten there? The second one is, well, why do you need a skilled coalition? And you need a skilled coalition, even if you've got the need and the vision and the map, the people dynamics and all that other stuff. You need a skilled coalition because otherwise it's going to lead to anxiety. Anxiety within maybe the management team, anxiety within the organization. Do these people even know what they're talking about? Do they even understand what the knock-on effects are for human resources or production or testing or whatever area you are in? And you see, gosh, they don't even have enough competencies within the team to make sure that we're not breaking more than we're making. And the same goes for if you don't map people dynamics. If you do everything else, but you don't map the people dynamics, well, then it's going to lead to a lot of resistance. And maybe not lead to resistance, but you won't be able to anticipate it as well, and you'll be surprised by it, or you won't be prepared for it. And so mapping people dynamics will take away, or at least prepare you for any kind of resistance. And by the way, resistance, negative people, they're absolutely fantastic in a change. Use these people who see the flaws in your plan. Encourage them to bring it. But it's those people who are cynical and they're very problematic. Those are the people that we need to help to another company, maybe. But, if you do get some pushback from the organization, that can be a very healthy sign. If we've done everything else, but we haven't mapped business dynamics, oh my goodness, this is going to lead to a lot of frustration. We've got a need and a vision, and we've got this team together, but we don't actually have a good understanding about how this will affect the organization as a whole. So we're pulling on a lever over here, and all kinds of things are happening over there, but we haven't anticipated that at all. And then we're scrambling, and then we've got issues that we hadn't anticipated at all. And this leads to frustration. And the final one is if you haven't crafted an implementation plan, so you've gone through all this, you've got the need and you've got a team and you've mapped the people and business dynamics, but you haven't put it into a coherent plan, well, you're still in trouble because now you're going to put people on a treadmill. We've got to push over here. How much do we need to push? How far do we need to go? I'm not sure, but just go over there and make sure it works. And then we're going on that. But then we need to do something over here. Then we need to do something there. Well, what has priority? I don't know. Everything has priority. Give me a sense of urgency. Oh dear. So crafting the implementation plan, making sure you've got things weighted and prioritized and put in the right time frame will go a long way to helping you have a successful change. And that's it. That's our practical tool for this latest video of Pocket Change. Glad you were here. Next time, we're going to get into something called organizational learning. Until then.